Hi, I'm Prachi Singh. I'm an associate fellow at Brookings India, and I work mostly in health policy research at Brookings. So this particular report that we are going to launch soon is on medicines in India. And primarily the reason why we are focusing on medicines in India is the following reason, that the expenditure which is borne on health in any country can be borne by primarily three areas. One can be by the government, another one can be by the insurance companies, and the third one can be the expenditure which is borne by the household themselves, which is called out-of-pocket expenditure. Now, if you look at the data worldwide, what we find is that in case of countries say like US, around 20% of this health expenditure is borne by the households. This figure is slightly high for China, somewhere around 40%, but when it comes to a country like India, this figure is as high as 65%. And this figure is so huge if we start looking at state differences. For example, states like Bihar and UP have this figure at as high as 75% or 80%. So imagine a huge chunk of the expenditure which is borne on health has not been paid for by the government or by insurance companies, but by the households themselves. And hence this huge financial burden is something that should be focused on. And what we do is that we then start disaggregating what this out-of-pocket expenditure essentially comprises of. And what we see is that around close to 40% of this expenditure is actually spent on medicines, and hence medicines become the focus of our report. Now, in our report, we are basically focusing on three themes which surround medicines in India. These three themes basically encompass accessibility and affordability and quality of medicines in India. So if I'll touch upon each of these. And to begin with, if I talk about accessibility of medicines, the way we deal with accessibility is how do cheaper medicines become available in India via pharmaceutical stores. So one of the policies which has been undertaken by the government is called Pradhan Mantri Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana, or in short Jan Aushadhi scheme. And under this scheme, government has made possible to make medicines available to a large number of people, generic medicines at much cheaper prices than the retail prices. And these stores have been set up all across India. More than 5,000 of these stores have been set up in the entire country. But the whole focus for us was to see where these stores are spatially located, and are there any factors which make possible for these stores to be set up in certain areas. And what we find is that close to these 5,000 stores which have been set up all across the country, they are mostly set up in areas which are more developed, the ones which are have high income or are more urban in nature. So by the construct of it, you can get an idea that a lot of areas get ignored. A lot of northeastern states, a lot of the states or areas which are primarily rural are the ones where these stores are still absent. And hence the whole idea of reaching more people in terms of providing them with cheaper medicines gets defeated purely because these stores are not there in the areas where they are needed. Secondly, we focus on the quality of medicines in India, which is, of course, even if you make medicines affordable, that might still defeat the purpose of making the whole efficiency of the whole system poor, primarily because the quality of the medicines can still be very low. So what we find from various government data sources, that close to 3 to 4% of the medicines in India are found to be substandard or spurious in nature. And the whole idea was to see what are the state differences when it comes to these substandard drugs in our country. And we do find that there are certain states which have much more poor quality of medicines, but more importantly, there are certain states which are the originating sites for these bad quality medicines. So there are manufacturing sites which are located essentially in Uttarakhand or in Himachal Pradesh, which constantly pops out in terms of all the drug alerts which are issued by various state FDAs. And we notice that there is some regulatory mechanism which is failing, because of which so many substandard drugs are getting produced from these very locations. And lastly, we focus on affordability of medicines, and when we are focusing on affordability of medicines, we primarily look at how government has been regulating the prices of the medicines in our country. Historically, such price regulations where a certain medicine cannot be priced above a certain above a certain ceiling limit have been put in place starting from 1970s. This started from major drug price control orders have been put in place in 1987, 1995, and then after a huge gap again in 2013. So during the last to last drug price control order, close to around 74 drugs were put under regulation. But this figure swelled to a huge number, which is around 350 drugs now. The whole idea was to see whether this expansion in regulatory ambit essentially mirrors the disease burden that our country is facing currently. So all of us know that the burden of non-communicable diseases is on rise in India. So whether our drug price control orders mirror the same, are those drugs the ones which aim at curing these ailments or treating these ailments, are the ones which have also been captured by the new drug price control order. And we do find that largely a lot of these medicines which are, say, aimed at cardiac ailments or respiratory ailments or diabetic kind of ailments are the ones which have been captured well by the current drug price control order. So these are the themes that we in detail touch upon in our report, and we hope to share our own findings and listen to the feedback which experts from the field might have. Thank you.